Continuing our discussion on Jainism or Jain Dharma, let's continue our discussion. We saw last lecture that Jainism is an ancient religion of India, like Hinduism and Buddhism, and we saw the three jewels of Jainism: right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. The major vows and minor vows, and what are the jinas, and so on. Now. In this lecture, we will look at furthermore a bit deeper into Jainism. So, Jains, as I mentioned, are about not more than 10 million probably in India, and then some about 100,000 Jains in America, in North America also, and some few thousands probably in Europe and elsewhere in Australia and Middle East and the rest of Asia. In India, within India, Jains are mostly found in Rajasthan, Gujarat. Some are in Karnataka, South India. Uh, some in Maharashtra and some other parts of India also. But mostly they are found in Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Karnataka, and few in Maharashtra and so on. But of course, some Jains are spread across India now and across the world now. Right, and let's go to the next slide, slide 4 in this presentation on the origin and foundation of Jainism. Uh, Native Jains are all over India, as I mentioned, north, south, east, west of India. Jain communities have formed a network in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Karnataka, for example, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Gujarat, for example. And because of these business networks across India and across the world now, and across time, they have revitalized their community for hundreds and hundreds of years. The business empires of some of Jains are spread across India now, for example. Jains have also historically come from all kinds of castes and classes from the Hindu society. Many Jains in Rajasthan, for example, used to be Rajputs or Kshatriyas earlier from the warrior class, and they became completely non-violent as they became Jain. Some Jains have also come from the so-called lower classes. Some Jains have come from Brahmin class. Some Jains have come from farmer classes, and some even some non-Indians had adopted Jainism in ancient times and became Jains after they embraced Jainism. Who were the non-Indians who became Jains? There is a belief, especially within the Jain tradition, the belief is that Acharya Pushpadant, one of the great teachers of Jain tradition, was actually a Greek person who was left behind after Alexander left. Kshatrapa Nahapana became Acharya Pushpadant from Jain tradition. Uh, some Mathura installers had non-Indian names. Mathura is an ancient place where ancient statues of Jain monks, Jain Tirthankars are found, and there we find some non-Indian names. Uh, Mahavans mentions that Jain monks were present in Sri Lanka also, outside India, south of India. Then Yapaniya Sangh on Konkana coast, on the east coast of India, in Kerala and in Karnataka, are also written as Yavaniya. Now, Yavan word means traditionally in India, the Yavan word has been used for the Greek community. So, can we say that Yapaniya or Yavaniya, that implies that Indo-Greek community they became Jains after a few centuries of Alexander's departure from India? And then finally, we know that there are few North American people, Caucasian people who became Jains, who embraced Jains out of their own will. I personally know some one in Tennessee and few in Detroit area, for example, and few others as well. So there are these sporadic examples of non-Indians that become Jains in present time and also as well as in the past. Now, there is a story, very famous, popular legend story, that Alexander, as he arrives, and when he comes to India, 326 BCE, he reaches Takshila, where there was one of the most ancient universities of the world existed in present-day Afghanistan. Takshila is present-day Afghanistan. So as Alexander approaches Takshila, there is a quote here that on the appearance of Alexander, actually, first Alexander meets a naked monk who is described as a gymnosophist, one of the gymnosophists, as he's described in the Greek literature. And as they both meet each other, they both laugh at each other. Alexander laughs at this naked monk, and says that what a waste of a life. What is he doing, sitting idle and wearing nothing, eating nothing, drinking nothing, just wasting his life away? And the naked monk laughs at Alexander that what is he doing? What is the point of trying to conquer the world and killing so many people when one has to go empty-handed? As it happened, Alexander did die empty-handed, like all of us will and have will do that same. But there is a very famous legend that Alexander died empty-handed. So that's what this naked monk laughs at Alexander, looks at Alexander, and laughs at his arrogance, that why is he killing millions, thousands of people, and going thousands of miles just to conquer the world. So there is a quote here now. On the appearance of Alexander, these vulnerable men gave no other sign of interest. Alexander asked them what they meant by this, and they replied, King Alexander, every man can possess only so much of the earth's surface as this we are standing on. You are but human like the rest of us. So why go on around the world, and why conquer everybody, every place and everybody? That's the kind of debate that happens between Alexander and this naked monk, also called as gymnosophist. Alexander was so impressed by this naked monk that he invites this gymnosophist to his court in Greece. So that several sages, then the legend goes that they join Alexander and they go to Greece and teach different philosophies of India, most likely Jain philosophy, to these people in Greece. The leader was Dandamis, and but he refuses. Dandamis refuses this invitation of Alexander. But Calenus, another person described in Greek literature, who was also a monk from India, who does accept the invitation, and he goes to Greece. So there could be this speculation that probably Dandamis might be a Jain monk, because Jain monks are usually they never travel outside India, because they cannot use any vehicle or any animal to ride, because that would be violence towards that animal. So they don't use any vehicle to travel far distances. So who knows if that Dandami could have been a Jain monk. But that's the story of supposedly a Jain monk, supposedly a Jain naked monk, a Jain who met Alexander, and Alexander was so influenced that he invites other sages to come to Greece and learns these different kinds of philosophies in Greece. There is another speculation, especially by Jains, traditionally, that Pythagoras, the famous mathematician who is attributed to be giving this right angle triangle theorem in mathematics, he lived from 580 to 500 BCE, and he apparently founded a Pythagorean tradition in Greece, and he was a vegetarian. He believed in reincarnation and spiritual progress, and he is thought to have visited India, and he probably might have learnt these ideas from some Jain teachers, and that he adopted in his own life, and he started a new tradition in Greece. Now, who knows? There is no evidence, clear evidence of any connection with Jainism, but there are some speculations that maybe Pythagoras also took some ideas from the Jain philosophy. Uh, then, if we look at now Mahavira's time of India during the time of Mahavira, the origin can be traced as old as 8th century BCE, as around that time. And Mahavira, as I said, he was a contemporary of the Buddha. Both Mahavira and Buddha accepted the Hindu ideas of liberation from the cycle of rebirth and karma. Mahavira but rejected the rituals like Buddha also, because rituals were all violent rituals, because animals were being sacrificed by Brahmins who used to be controlling these rituals. So both Buddha and Mahavir, they rejected these rituals. Mahavira's term itself means a great hero, literally. So all these warrior kind of terms are used in describing great sages in Jain tradition. For example, Shramana, kind of a heroic effort that somebody does and becomes a jina. Then the idea of Gana, which means a group, or Sangha, which means also a group or a lineage, Kula. or Mahavira, the great hero. All these terms have been accepted in Jain tradition, but all these terms are applied to people who do some great efforts and become the Jinas. Not not somebody who does violence against others, but the people who put these great efforts against their own being, and they conquer their own self, and they become Jinas. So that's why they are called with these heroic terms. Other terms that are used are Tirtha and Tirthankara. As we mentioned in the previous lecture, the Tirthankaras are the ford makers who establish new Jain communities when they come to the world. We also refer to the Jain cycle of time in the previous lecture. So Jain cosmic wheel, as described in slide 10, goes clockwise. So it goes clockwise. In the right hand side is the time of deterioration in moral degeneration and moral degradation in the society, and in the left hand side is the uprising or improvement in the society. So the last half or last portion of the first of the right side of this cycle is when Mahavira was born. If you look at this slide closely, you'll see that sixth ara is mentioned as Dusam Dusam or Dusam Dusam, was the time when Mahavira passes away. Actually, Mahavira passes away in fourth era, at the end of the fourth era, and that's how after he passes away, after he attains his enlightenment around age of 80, then the ultimate moral degeneration time starts. That's the fifth era and sixth era. Now, at the end of the sixth era, the time will start improving again. So it's from positive to negative, and again from negative to positive. So supposedly we are at the most negative time period as of now, and after this period is over, time and life and the world universe will start improving with more morality coming back in the world. Happiness increases in the left side, happiness decreases in the right side. All right, let's go to the next slide, slide 11, which talks about Jain scriptures, Jain texts that were all compiled in 3rd and 4th century BCE. The 14 Purvas are all extinct now. We don't know when they were lost and where they are now. They're completely gone. But 12 Angas are still preserved, especially by one of the sects of Jainism, the Shvetambaras. And then there are 34 Anga Bahayas that are also preserved by the Shvetambaras. And we'll take a look at these texts in a bit greater detail in the later lecture. 12th Purva to Digambar texts are Drishtivada to Shatakhanda Agama, first written Jain text by Dharasena in 156 CE. This is a commentary by Virisena. And Kashaya Prabhrita by Gunabhadra. This is a commentary by Jinisena, written in 820 CE. These are the Digambar texts. As we mentioned in the last lecture, the ford makers, the Tirthankaras, are the legendary teachers. Rishabha was the first such teacher, and he was the one who taught the world how to cook food, how to kindle fire, how to do agriculture, how to do writing, how to conduct marriages, how to lead a family, how to raise a family, idea of donations, social classes. And he is described, especially in the Hindu literature, Hindu texts, he is described as very similar to Shiva, householder ascetic, and he's referenced in the Vedas. Also, the Jain tradition believes that the earlier Tirthankars were of much larger sizes. They were huge. They were of huge sizes, and they lived for thousands of years. That's the belief in the Jain tradition. And some of the major Tirthankaras, ford makers, are Neminath, Shantinath, Anantanath, and Parshvanath, and Mahavira. Okay, let's see. Then the 14th slide talks about one of the 23rd Tirthankara, who was just before Mahavira, and he was born in 8th century BCE, born in Banaras in North India, 250 years before Mahavira, and he died at the age of 100 on Mount Sameta in North India. And he followed 4 vows, and Mahavir added the 5th vow of celibacy. And as he was meditating for a long period, he was protected by a cobra head, by a serpent. And when some Brahmin attacks him, a cobra or a snake or a serpent protects him. So he's always shown with this cobra head. And in his lineage, apparently, is where Mahavira also joins when he becomes an ascetic from being a prince. 250 years after after Pashwa comes Mahavira. So Mahavira's time on the slide 15th is time is 599 to 527 or 599 to 510 BCE. He was born as a Prince Mahavardhaman in Pashwala's lineage in a warrior class. And his parents were Trishula and King Siddhartha. He marries the princess Yashoda and becomes the father. Even they have a daughter. But at his 30th birthday, Mahavira renounces his worldly life, his princely life, and he is initiated as a monk. After 12 and a half years of intense penance and intense austere practices, Mahavira attains the enlightenment. His first disciples are the 11 Brahmins, and they are called as Ganadharas. At the age of 72, he dies at Pavapuri in Bihar in North India. This is the brief biography of Mahavira. Uh, Now, the enlightened people, those who are jinas, those who are destined to become jinas, they all have special body with special marks on their bodies. Their mother sees 14 auspicious dreams. They go through rigorous austerities. They achieve omniscience, but not the union with the absolute. Their soul still remains separate from other souls in the universe. And after enlightenment, when they preach the universe, that is called as the Samvatsarana, and that's their preaching assembly. And Gautama, Sudharman, and Jambu are some of the major Ganadharas in the tradition of Mahavira. What is the teaching of Jainism? Most important teaching that Jains have been practicing and teaching is the non-violence to all beings and to oneself. The teaching of asceticism, renouncing worldly life. Self-reliance, not relying on any god or goddess or any magic or any mystical power of any guru, but self-reliance, self-efforts can only lead one to achieving liberation. Then deliverance as a state of non-violence and spiritually unconditioned state is the idea of enlightenment and liberation in the Jain tradition. And then idea of karma, that karma has to be removed from one's soul if one wants to achieve liberation. And it can be compared to the Hindu ideas that are described in the Upanishads. In the next slide, slide 18, there is a map of Jains in America. There are about more than 100 centers now, 100 temples across United States. Most Jains are in New York, some in Florida, California, Texas. Those are the major centers of Jains in North America now. And let's stop here and we'll continue in the next one.